We can't get into it. You can't. Yeah. I've got the invite. I just don't think they're login and ended set, so I think it's our laptop. We thought about new laptops. But it's set yet. You won't access it. You can access it if you use X away. That's what I think. In the browser.
Okay, everyone, I think we are ready to roll.
The host deliver, I can't share my screen. The host go to low share.
Okay, I think we are live, so I'll start the meeting. That's okay. So a warm welcome at the very sunny welcome, Farnham, to the Farnham Infrastructure Board on 25th of July 2035. What I'm going to ask, actually, first of all, we have a couple of new officers here, which the way to all. So Ben, can I just sort of go up the line here and just say who you are?
I'm coming up from the communications team at Surrey County Council. Good morning, I'm John Blackman, Director of Infrastructure Delivery.
Elaine Martin, Programme Manager and Team Manager for Major Projects. For Principal Project Manager and so the lead for the town centre work.
Good morning, Matches. I'm sorry, staff on straight work stuff. Excellent, thank you all very much. Right, so if we move straight. Sorry. And we just talk about the issues.
Can we just check the sound on those online?
Okay, thank you. Just doing a sound check for those online, please.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
With that, so excellent, good. Okay, thank you very much then. So we'll crack on. So and actually the team, we had a good walk around there to the site inspection, so we're going to just touch on some of those as we go through for this. So first of all, we just agree the minutes of the last meeting. Thank you very much, Catherine, for chairing that. So it's the first and only one time that's No, thank you for that. So that's, the minutes were on the please on 28th of March 2025. Those agreed. Good, thank you. Right, and so there are some actions that came out of that meeting. Elaine, do you want to pick those up?
That's my. Me too. You still.
You should be okay because of the microphone we're using. It should be fine. Karen, just speak anyway. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, so there was an update on the communications for the parkway thing, the rally, or Riverside, sorry. This has been complete and the opening ceremony took place on 24th of May 2025. There was also the action to complete a safety audit of temporary traffic management and run through the concerns raised in the chapter. That's been complete, and since there's been several reviews that have been undertaken since the last report, including with the local accessibility groups. Number 3, which was FIP to include data on car parking, air quality and footfall at the next meeting. We'll be coming to that later in the slides. And then item number 4, JSL to review the A287 signage from the M3 and whether tree planting is included in the A31 works. Just okay, that's been completed and requested that National Highways place additional signage to deter drivers from using the A287 when they're planned M3 closures, and tree planting is included into the A31 works. And then the last one was Tim Oliver and Catherine Powell to meet to agree formats of meetings going forward. So obviously something for staff.
There are restrictions we haven't yet started, but it's like, yeah, it's we just kind of look at the timing sort of these meetings, so as what's the that works. So, okay, any issues on any of those qualifiers? Otherwise, we will go to item 3, which is an update that we on the short and the medium term interventions.
So as usual, I like to do a fanfare of all the things that we've done so far, the key successes, what we've achieved so far. They make me feel like mine works, but it's all part of the programme that we agreed to. And there's been a great deal of work that's been carried out and completed. The overview of progress paper, which comes in the actual Farnham board papers, will give a bit more detail of all, what we've done and the next steps. So we're going to talk through the following slides for different projects. So Riverside, I've got to do a before and after, how good it looks now. All works complete, including installation of the lighting. You can see the before and after images on the screen. It does feel a nice place to actually walk. Each time I've been down, I don't know about anybody else, but I've had some lovely feedback. We've had a couple of post-construction safety kind of audit elements, which we've completed recently, which was just some kind of flared railings because the slope slightly changed on the existing bridge to near the Riverside car parks, and white lining and sign update will be completed in August when we've got our white lining gang out there. So it's been handed back to Farnham Town Council, and as I said before, we had a successful opening ceremony on the 24th of May, and we linked it in with Brightwells, so we obviously want to showcase Brightwells as well. And we hosted some kind of cycle events for children, and people could borrow bikes and cycle along the Crook Pole. And actually, there was a lot of footfall. We thought, it may be, and it wasn't like the sunny day, ironically, that we've had up to that point, but it actually was great to see. The new pedestrian footbridge has been installed by Crest now. I had a quick look myself, but it's nice, I think. And there, we understand that they're working on a programme to be completing in mid-August. And now this bridge is in, we can finish our next section, which is the Borelli Walk section, which is South Street to Bramwell's Bridge. And we're going to be liaising with Farnham Town Council Waverley, just about some detail, the benches, the usual. And the construction work will be undertaken by Ringway, because they've done a great job, we thought, on the Riverside one, it's good quality. And the construction programme, although it's yet to be defined, we plan to do it in November, while the reduced works are in town for the embargo for the Christmas period. So we can use their gowns at the same time. Thank you.
Just because I've been asked about 3 times this week, when now the bridge is in place, once Preston finish their works, are we going to reopen that section? Because people do miss using the section that's been closed for 5 or 6 months now.
Thanks, Catherine. We did have, I had that asked myself when I was at the event, so I've been asked that. What we plan to do, if there is any delay in our scheme coming forward, then obviously it will tie in anybody else's scheme, so we'll leave it open as much as possible. So yes, we'll leave it open as much as we can. Does that make sense? So once Preston finish their works, even if there's a month delay, it will get
In August.
yeah, because yeah.
Yes. So I thought you were going to raise the issue, so Elaine and I together and have a look at this stuff earlier, so we know what we expect.
Okay, yeah. Come on.
Actually, you've got dodgy one, George. You won't go back.
Well, thank you, Town Clerk. You always look out for your son, well.
Shout.
I'll tell you what, I'll project. This is really FYI, because it's a question, it's an issue, it's not a Surrey County Council issue. Oh, good, properly. Unfortunately, they've positioned the bridge out of alignment with the step. And as you look at the bridge from, say, if you're looking at it from Whitewell House, you're looking through the green area to the steps, to the bridge beyond, and it's off to one side. That's a Crest issue, it's FYI. The Director of Land at Crest Nicholson is aware of it, he's acknowledged that we flagged it up with him. He flagged it up to Councillor Oliver as well. So hopefully they will do something about it. Yeah, structurally it works, but aesthetically it doesn't. You know what I mean? The bridge itself, I think, is great. It looks good, it's the colour we wanted, it's got the balustrade that we wanted, it's got a little curve to it. So I'm very happy about that. And so we'll see what they do about the alignment issue. Thanks.
I think what's happened was they built steps as you put the centre as you look down right well, so the bridge is sort of slightly over there. So we did have a little look and I said I don't know what the options are, either to remove the steps and just use the round stair. I might be the easiest way to or they need to extend the steps so we'll see where as you say the Crest issue, but we'll make sure we see that gives some notes. Okay, thank you. See you later.
The next item is LCWIP, but I'm not sure it's Neil on the call.
Yes, hello, Elaine. Yes, I am. Assuming you can hear me.
Yes.
You can. Okay. Shall I go ahead? Thank you. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick update on the LSWIP for Farnham. So there's 2 main items that have been ongoing in the current state of play. The first being the addendum report, which is to capture the updates, additions put forward by Surrey and Waverley Borough councillors, to capture it within the addendum report to sit alongside the main body Farnham LSWIP report. And then the second main piece is the feasibility stage design work to get underway with the routes that are the agreed priorities So on those 2 points, so yeah, the priority schemes agreed with councillors and stakeholders as part of that earlier piece of work. And then all the updates and additions to the main body Farnham Elsewhere report are agreed and are now captured within a draft addendum report. This is now being circulated. You may see that in inboxes today to those involved for final comments before we're then able to publish alongside, say, the main body Farnham report. Sitting alongside that, the stage 2 feasibility work on the priority routes within the plan is now underway. We've commissioned the consultants and we've had an initial inception meeting with the project team internally, but Waverley Borough, Surrey and Farnham Town Council to set things off, but obviously subject to completion of the final addendum piece there. That work on the feasibility will then get underway over the next period. We'll update the website with the details as soon as we're able to from the published addendum report, and that will set out the priorities. And I think it's just worth highlighting again that yes, there are priority routes and there's a budget in place to take those forward, but the Farnham LCP is a strategic longer term plan, and all routes are there for development and taking forwards, subject to funding and other items, including local developments coming online and developer funding, etc., coming into play. So that the plan is there and the work is underway to take these forward and build on the ground as we get the funding through to come through from the likes of Active Travel England and other sources that we're working with. I think that's update from my side.
The addendum report, you have said that you would be in a position to circulate to local councillors fairly soon. I haven't seen it yet. I would very much appreciate some urgency around this. We have a very large development in the centre of town on a brownfield site, which you are aware of, that would be impacted by the routes that are included in that addendum that the developer is currently refusing to provide. So there is some urgency around this, as we have previously discussed. Can you give us some idea of how quickly this can come out to the local councillors and how quickly it can be published?
Yes, I can, and yeah, apologies, there has been a slight delay internally. So we've got the addendum report through from the consultant. We've made a few amends internally ourselves. It's being circulated right now. So as I said earlier, you may see your email inbox today, and that's all people that are involved in that earlier Surrey, Waverley Borough and Farnham Town Councillors meeting. So it's there. We're allowing a couple of weeks of comments, ideally. Absolutely aware of the developments underway, so transport development planning from our side, engaged in that process. And yeah, of course, we've got a meeting this afternoon with yourself, Councillor Powell and others to start picking up on some of those recent developments that have come through in terms of the development sites and how that will affect the feasibility work that we now need to take forwards. So the addendum is there, and we just need to finalise from all sides that everyone's happy with the content before we can then publish and share that more widely. So yes, it's a piece in play, and the feasibility work is commissioned to now be underway.
I mean, I'm really sorry to push the point, but there is real urgency around this. So if it comes out to us and we have 2 weeks or however long you give us to review, that's fine. But what review process then needs to take place between the end of that period and it being published? Because really it's it being published and in the public domain and a document that can be used for planning that is becoming really, really urgent.
Yeah, so the Farnham LCP itself is an endorsed plan from the borough side, and it's signed off by our cabinet member, which is part of the LCP programme process.
It's stuff in the addendum that's important. I'm only asking about the addendum. What other does it have to go through, and what's the date by which it will be published?
So from our side, because it's already it's an addition to the endorsed plan, we're only expecting those from yourself, from your side, the Waverley Borough side and Farnham Town Council side. If everyone's satisfied that the content that we've agreed from those previous meetings is captured correctly, that's a published document. We're not expecting any further approval process required as part of the addendum. Those routes are agreed, that's already in place, and the work is set to go underway. So there's no delay after everyone's satisfied that the captured comments accurately reflect what was agreed in those meetings.
So if we can get a consolidated set of comments back to you from the local councillors in less than 2 weeks, you can get it published in less than 2 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah. The email is going out today from our team. We've allowed 2 weeks as a summer holiday period, but absolutely, if everyone's happy, then that's it. It's in place and ready to go with the feasibility stage in the background underway.
Thanks, Neil, then I think that the council will do what their best to kind of get those back to you in the next couple of weeks. Can I apologise, because I've just realised that this is George Hess's first visual meeting, see so often that I don't quite realise that it's down informally what it's for. But also, so to welcome you, but also to thank David Bailey, who hasn't so going far to see. But his huge contribution, he's still there, I'm sure will be a key participant in or observant, so apologies for not mentioning that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that then takes us to item 4, which is the town central improvements.
So the town centre, so this shows an ability phasing plan, just like how.
Turn sideways, that one, yeah.
Oh, you just turned it off on the slide.
Okay, so this slide, I was foundation with a slide showing an updated phasing plan, like the difference between the last Farnham or last March and the. If you move to the next slide. So being slide by slide, so phase 3, which is Downing Street between Lower Church Lane and Longbridge, at the last board meeting, which was in March, we've only yet started, it has now been completed, and that a few days ahead of schedule. Phase 4, so that's the junction of Longbridge, Union Road and Victoria Road, we nearly complete. As you know, all roads are remained open during the day with no diversions. We've also agreed a fixed date over a month in advance for the commissioning of the traffic lights and the two opening of Downing Street between Longbridge and Bacon Yard, and that was in response of the first 2 ways happening along the borough work with the deal of notice. That will also happen during the summer holidays, which we very much help with easing issues on. We've also brought the completion date of phase 4 to mid-August. If you were to go back to the last phase plan that we showed last March, it was showing early September. And all events have been accommodated, so this includes the carnival at the Middle that took place in June, and with some extra resource from Railway on the day to help facilitate to ensure everything was running smoothly for traffic point of view on our side. Phase 5 is a very, very small phase, which is the entrance to Lower Church Lane. Again, since last March, we are in the program so to avoid the need for additional road closures. So we've done that by overlapping phase 5 with the end of phase 4 with the night closure. That meant that residents of Lower Church Lanes and Bigger Lane will only be impacted once rather than twice. The next phase, which is like a big one, moving forward, so that Downing Street and West Street. So again, for ease of reference, last March, we were showing that as running from autumn 25 to spring 26. So as is happening for each phase, so Ringway and the Story project team have been working very closely to not only compress the program, but refine it to mitigate impacts of delivery. So in particular, with the increased number of teams working in that location at any one point. So we had 2 gangs in June, we have 3 gangs currently, and there will be 5 in July. And then again, 1 more will be added from the beginning of September as we add in a 9th gang, so that we have 6 teams across Downing Street and West Street by September. We put for the pavement resurfacing work, so we started actually early at the bottom of Downing Street on the eastern side, and that could help bringing those additional resources incrementally rather than all at once. So as a result, the Downing Street road closure, which is necessary for safety reasons to build the scheme, is now just under 2.5 months. That's from the 18th of August to 1st of November. And for clarity, because we all talking about foreclosure, it's actually not a foreclosure, we're maintaining access for private parking and deliveries that we provide. Again, so that is very clear, we will not need to close Downing Street again in January. Another remark is the permanent lights that are being installed at the top of Downing Street, so West Street Downing Street Junction, were previously scheduled to be installed toward the spring. I believe, but that's now being postponed, and may be installed by 1st of November. So this means that when Downing Street and West Street Junction, when we open Downing Street on the 1st of November, the junction will be operating under permanent traffic lights from the 1st of November onwards. And again, all events will be accommodated. First 13, which is South Street and Union Road.
Also.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Microphone, please.
Just turn yours on.
Perfect.
Oh, not to worry. Mind you, people can't hear if I use this, can they? Next week, we're having a new system. But we'll have to get FIP today. Yeah, just a couple of things. Looks to me like Greenway are being very clever. At the moment, they're working on one side, keeping the lane open. Long may they be able to continue up to do that as much as possible, and maybe even to switch to the other side. I don't know, but it seems like a clever way of working. There's all sorts of health and safety considerations, but it looks good the way they're working at the moment. I do have a question about sealant. There was a spill outside the Lost Boy restaurant. Somebody dragged a sack of refuse with oil in the bottom of it, all on the new paving. That it was brought to their attention, I think, by Councillor White, actually, who's sitting at the back there. And they did have a go at cleaning it, but I think it's still marked the new paving, which is a really huge shame. Are we sealing the paving as we go to protect it from spills? Thank you.
Yeah, so we actually walked there this morning and noticed that. So the answer is it wasn't originally, but we are going to seal it. And so we first clean the area at the bottom of Downing Street and then seal it down. But it will be still from the beginning going forward.
Right.
I'll just add one.
Yeah.
Just Christmas lights issue. It will conflict slightly with the works in Down Street. I don't think we very much. We haven't got the contractor's schedule yet, but we'll make sure I speak with your team to get that coordinated. They'll be doing the work at night anyway, so it probably wouldn't impact too much.
Yeah, thanks, Lee.
So just to clarify, the discussion we had in the site visit this morning was that the Greenway contractor confirmed that going forward they are sealing it before they open it up to public use. So just to make that clarification, so I think it is important for residents because that was an issue that's been raised with, I know, with others.
Yeah, so the only location where it didn't happen is very push the first location and which is one, but objecting. I think first people doing it, but otherwise we've seen the off. Sorry, so first 13, which is South Street and Union Road. So again, for ease of reference, last March, it was shown as taking place in September, October. And so it's been pushed back to November, December, and it was very much to ensure that there's less impactful works taking place in the town in order after Christmas, as well as lots of feedback from businesses that November was just as important, if not more, than December business-wise. And so the work will focus on South Street and Union Road. They're quite minor compared to what we're doing along Downing Street with a tiny bit of the work, some drainage works resurfacing at night. And January 2026 onwards. So just to flag, so when we don't need to close Downing Street again, and we remain open, we'll still be finishing at a couple of locations.
In particular, the crossing of a church lane and the extended public realm to the southwest corner of Downing Street Westgate Junction. That requires minimum traffic management, which means that we will be able to bring some of the tolling phases forward. And so very much to say, so what you're seeing there on screen, this is very much will be refined, and I expect that you'll be able to share further good news about the team having managed to compress the 2020 program further as we move forward.
Sorry. So could you just exactly quite a bit? So the resurfacing of South Street and what was the other? And Union Road. Okay, and that will happen in November. Yeah. Okay.
So just in terms of that resurfacing, obviously I understand it's going to be done at night. Obviously in that time period, we would still wish to minimise the number of closures of that road, and for as much as possible to be done under lane closures rather than road closures. Obviously appreciate that you're still working on detailed scheduling around that. But I think it would be really useful to keep, the councillors and the town council in the loop on that, because it is still of concern. Obviously, the road needs resurfacing. It's the road I'm sure all of us in the whole town get more complaints about than anything else. But we also do want to make sure that it's done in a way that minimises the impact, and recognising that you have to be doing some work to keep the teams busy during the period when we don't want you working in Downing Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say we do a remembrance parade, which starts in Class Street and goes down South Street. If there's any chance of getting the worst bits done prior to that parade, that would be helpful, but we understand it's got to be programmed. But yeah, so South Street is we always have to go through and warn people where they've got to avoid potholes.
It was ready this morning.
Yeah, we talk about this one. I think it's probably better to say that it's unlikely that it will be preserved for 10th or 11th of November, I'm afraid.
Nine.
Yeah, I think that's that. But it will be for next year. Okay, on.
I think that's for me. Ben?
Hi, thank you. So we're still working very hard on project communications with the aim of getting all of the right information out in a timely manner. There's a lot of detail in the presentation, but there are a few things I just wanted to just point out to you now. So the project newsletter is performing well. We've got a subscriber list which is increasing each month. It's still receiving really good open rates. We supported the opening Riverside Walk, and because we have the dates of the work on Longbridge and Downing Street, we're able to do a systematic cascade of information well in advance of that and the works on Downing Street, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. In response to some of the feedback we've had here in other places, we're trying to do more and more different formats, people who need information in different ways. We've made some website improvements. We've launched an AI chatbot. It's been initially sort of a soft launch linked to our website and the e-newsletter. We've done some promoted social media this week, and we're looking at how we can make more of that over the coming month in terms of promotion, the functionality, but also it gives intelligence in terms of what people are asking, and then we can reflect that in some of our messaging. And following the attendance of PCA students at a previous meeting of the board, they expressed interest in how they could support us and work with us. So, and I ended up in touch with their graphic design course lead, and our brand manager and I ended up going down there to have 25 pictures of potential active campaigns for their first and second year graphic design students. It was quite a long day, it's very tiring, so we're critiquing each one, but it was really rewarding and really nice. But there were a few ideas there which I hope to develop and potentially use going forward, but we haven't still had their presentations that we can look in further time. Moving on to the next slide. So we've got works ahead in the summer and autumn. These are some of the biggest ones and some of the most important ones that we communicate since work started. And we want to make sure we're using all of our channels to make sure that many people are aware of these changes that are happening in Downing Street and continue to visit retailers during closure. So messages are out there now covering night closures at the Longbridge Junction. And once those closures have got started, we'll start particularly highlighting the closure and the change to the lower section of Downing Street. We're giving people as much notice as we can, but also don't want to confuse people about what's happening and when. And we're also discussing options on what we can do to highlight the retailers still open on Down Street Ring road closure. The permanent barriers being taken away, which are the temporary barriers aren't really suitable for our messaging, so we're seeing what we can do in other ways, perhaps using some of the planters, which I'll hopefully pick up the town council after the meeting. We want to create an attractive gateway at the top of the road and then see what we can do to pull back down the road as well. I'm also being asked by the bid to see what we can do in car parks and in touch with the team at Waverley there. Obviously time's getting on, but we're getting on with that as quickly as we can. But once that's happening, it will move into a slightly different place in terms of how we could use some place messaging, covering what's going forward in the town, how to travel east into the town centre, that's particularly important. For example, what we'll be doing in the County Council So Matters newsletter, which goes across Surrey, is kind of highlighting some of the events of the holidays. I've put in New Skin Meadow, for example, and we're going to be particularly highlighting different ways to travel into the town in terms of ways to park, and that's supported by sort of maps and information which are all on the website now. Answering questions. Yeah.
I know we've already discussed this in private, Ben, but I just want to, just because it is one of the issues that's been raised. In terms of incorporating maps into the messaging going forwards, we have had significant feedback from people who struggle with verbiage and they just want a clear, simple picture they can understand. I know you're still working on the stuff from Downing Street, but just a reassurance that it will be shared with local councillors and the town council before it, with enough time before it goes live, just to make sure it covers the things that we know we're going to be asked, because we are regularly contacted by residents and it is impactful, but there are obviously things that we're trying to do. So anything you can do for both closure and also the diversion routes are really, really important. I cannot emphasise how important those diversion routes are, and making sure that people understand what the designated diversion route is, because they will find other ways. But understanding what the designated route is really important, particularly because, as I understand it, it involves roads that we don't necessarily fully control. So that would be very helpful.
Yes, we are working on a map. I have been in discussion with the web team to make sure that can go on the website. I'll have a bit more to think about diversion routes. I find them quite, from my perspective, I don't always find them, think they're the most user-friendly routes and necessarily take people where they want to go, but we'll give that some extra thought about what we can do about that. They're always very intuitive. I think that's just why one of our key messages is to use for everyone to travel as best you can, which obviously doesn't work for everyone, but we'll give that some thought.
Just check my voice. Yes, Bev, I like the idea of a pleasant gateway into Downing Street. I think we really go down well with the retailers. Please, I'd love to see the ideas. Thank you.
We'll be posted this week as we get there, obviously it's hard to discuss.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ben. In that case, we are going to move to the environment. Oh no, okay, Paul.
So Tim, could I just ask one?
Yeah, sure.
I probably ought to know the answer to this, but I don't, which is about the rain gardens. We're just beginning to look at plants for next year, and we probably ought to have a landscaping conversation before too long, so that we can make sure we're coordinated about who's ordering what and what we're going to be responsible for. And then similarly with street furniture as well.
So we've got an update catch up on Tuesday, and that's on my section already. So we stated at the last call that we looked at the impact of the works on birds and gators. So football, car park, and vacancy. So football first. So this is data coming from that Waverley Borough Council is collecting. Very annoyingly, so the football collection method changed between 2024 and 2025. So as much as I would like to point the slide and say the football has gone up, we can't actually compare like for like those numbers. So it used to be a football counter in Farnham. It's now telephone data. So the one thing we can do, because the collection method has changed in the same way across all of Waverley Town Centre, we can compare the share of wastewater in Farnham compared to the other towns. And very much so the data shows that Farnham is maintaining its share of wastewater compared to other Waverley town centres that do not have ongoing works. So whatever is happening, whether it's going down or up, that would be because of critical factor rather than the works, because the wastewater is incredibly stable as a share of the water Waverley goes for that hospital. I hope it makes sense because, yeah. So moving on to Carl.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. My understanding is that the change was from a request from the various bid groups. So originally it was counters, it's now, as you say, cellular data. As I said, I believe that has come from the various bids, and I also believe that the bids themselves have basically extra data that reinforce what you're saying here as well. So that's all good.
Yeah, it's probably better that I belong to a visual comparison, but it's just a bit more difficult to make them. So looking at car parks now, so again, sorry, it's a bit data heavy, and we've got 3 comparisons, so column A, B, and C. So if you look at column A, it would suggest decline in car park use from March onwards. However, we all very aware that in that right was open in December last year, and so if we then estimate the number of tickets sold, the usage of Brightwise, then we get quite different pictures. Because there's currently no counters at Brightwise, we can only make educated guesses. So I made a couple of assumptions there. Likely probably the truth in the middle. So in column B is if we assume each day at Brightwise is sold once a day and no more. And in column C, it's assumed that each bay is sold at the same rate at the lower used car parks. So excluding the car parks which got a very high turnaround up. And then both of those calculations suggest that there's not really any meaningful decline in car park usage. From next month onward, I believe, we have actual data for how many parks are talking on driveways, and we'll be able to be clearer as to the impact. But at the moment, it doesn't reflect as a meaningful impact on the car park usage system.
Just to basically support what Ori is saying, from a Waverley perspective, quite clearly, car parks are vital to us, maintain very strict records on what's happening. So for clarity, Wagon Yard has been affected, we can't deny that, and our suspicion is that that's primarily due to driver concerns about access. It doesn't look easy to get into Wagon Yard, should we say. Obviously, that's now going to change. The fact that the works have stopped down there. Our belief is that it will go up to its previous levels, particularly when Downing Street is close to vehicular traffic. It will be even easier to go in there on Wagon Yard, so we have no great problems with that. Yes, our belief at Waverley is that Brightwells is now a worker car park. By that I mean that people get in there for 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, park all day because they're working in the town. In fact, our belief is that is even changing again, and we suspect that it's almost moving to some commuters using it. The bottom line is that what we've seen is a very slight decline in Riverside and St James's. However, this kind of supports our belief that Brightwells is now being used by commuters, even those at Riverside and St James's now seem to be on the up again as workers aren't able to. Now, I don't know whether it's appropriate to say at this moment, but we are talking about car parks, so I'm going to. We are working, Waverley is working with 3 bids, and we'll be working with the Hazelmere Chamber of Commerce in time. Recognising that in particular, all 43 of the towns on the first one are going to have issues with relating to works in their town centres, whether it's the Cranley Leisure Centre or whatever. So we are working with various bids to recognise it, and what we are looking to do is introduce a tactical offer. Without boring you, we're investing a considerable amount of money in new ticket machines, which will allow us to do cleverer tactical offers. I'm looking to introduce a tactical offer across the borough as soon as the machines are installed, and we believe that the Farnham machines will be installed by the end of September. The bids are very keen on it, they like it, they like our thinking. It's designed to extend, rather than just get people in and give them free parking and they disappear. It's actually designed to attract visitors and get them to stay that little bit longer so that they can spend more in our shops and hospitality outlets. And as I said, that touch wood will go live in October. Yes, of course, it's a shame that we weren't able to have it in place all the start of the Downing Street works, but I'm afraid that just wasn't possible. But it will be there certainly by for the last month in October, prior to November. And hopefully, our hope, obviously, like most of the bid, is that it works, and that it works for both attracting people into the car parks and getting the expenditure up. And if it does, then obviously we will look to extend the trial and work with the bids to expand it even more. Thank you.
The question actually, I just want to, if you remember, with the arrangement we made between Railway and the Solid for central car parks and the use of deliveries during the in Main Street completely closed. Can I just ask where we are on the if they're now all set up? Agreed. Thank you.
Well, it's our authority to say for it.
Yeah, it's a related one.
Is that one switched off?
In a related issue, I've just had an email from a resident of one of the church lanes that says that the letter that came from Surrey Highway says during the works to Downing Street, if you live on upper, middle and lower church lanes, you may experience additional traffic as some deliveries will be routed via the church lanes. Now, we had previously discussed that just was not acceptable because those properties do not have any foundations at all. And therefore, we really can't be actively diverting deliveries down those roads, which is what the letter implies. So as Andy said, the original intention was to do it into central car park to avoid that issue. I really would like to understand where we're at because the residents are clearly concerned.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't give an update on the delivery phase, but Waverley Borough Council partnering with really helpful and collaborative, and we've actually got now 2, so one in October, we have to as of next week. One is for the car park, and like last time we had a business meeting, just one in Yard. So we have as well one there. And so our message is very much, if there's like default is head to those delivery days. And when they come in and try to access Downing Street area, and then the reason for them not to access those delivery days, they will be sent back to those days. So it's only those delivery that for whatever reason cannot use those days, that then we go to good stop and small vehicles will go to across the Russian lane, and large vehicles will go directly up Downing Street. But the default option the message want to send is use those delivery days. Firstly, that railway doesn't have to do this data in back and forth all the time and more quicker. 2, in terms of the environmental businesses doing construction, it'd be nicer if there's not constant vehicle movements on.
I just want to reiterate that those properties have no foundations. And we reassured them that we would not divert any traffic past those properties because there are no foundations. And most of that is ironstone, it's not, it can't take additional traffic. I'm not hearing from you that you're definitely not going to use that route. And I really would request that we go away and work a bit harder on avoiding any delivery lorries that do not need to access the church lanes themselves, of using that route, because it's not a sensible option.
So just to make it clear, no lorries are being planned down the church ends.
Okay, well, I think.
Can I just make a quick point on that? Do you mind? Yes. Yes, I mean, look, you know, actually from a safety point of view as well, I take the point about foundations. But a lot of the cottages on Lower Church Lane, for example, are right onto the carriageway. They don't have any kind of little strip or forecourt or anything, so they come out their front door. We really don't want couriers, because they were more around. Couriers are so time pressed. So that would be a danger. People coming out of the front door and a courier whizzing by could get them. So there is a health and safety issue there.
We there'll be somebody posted from Railway at that junction. So you can very much brief that person when you face. So he monitors what's happening and we can review set that as we go if that becomes an issue. Yeah, we can evaluate that.
Someone was going to raise under my network management issue, but there is a new product we've recently become aware of, digital products, which can redirect satellite navigation systems. We're trialing it at the moment with the companies, the Dutch company, it's common practice in Holland and not in the UK. We're still understanding how it works and what it does, so there is still a slight element of risk, but it purports to be able to redirect unwanted traffic away from unsuitable routes. So it strikes me that the discussion we just had here, this might be a very suitable location to trial that product to see if it can achieve. So to be clear, if your destination is one of those streets, the satellite doesn't say you can't go there. But if your destination is somewhere else, it won't route you down that road, it will take you down the route. So we are considering trial sites. I would urge caution. I don't think this is necessarily actually what we're looking for yet, and we are exploring its use. But it does sound like it'd be a good opportunity to perhaps trial that and see if it delivers the outcome we would like. So I'll talk to already outside of the room and see what we can arrange and when that might help.
That would be good, and also you also have something from Ringway in the way, so hopefully we can make sure that traffic is done, but that's no problem. Okay, you want to carry on?
Yeah, so air pollution, so we're already the air quality monitoring, and they're using two different data collection methods, low cost efficiency tubes and automatic monitoring station. So the data here is from automatic monitoring station, and there's only one in Farnham located at South Street. And because it's a bit far from everyone, but the two at the top are for Farnham, the one at the bottom is from Bethany, just for comparison, because everything is impacted by quite a number of other factors. And so as you can see, there's no suggestion, and that just at the South Street monitoring station, there's an impact from the work zone. Obviously, like the concern raised were more for Downing Street, and there's a number of what's called low cost diffusion tubes across Farnham. And so that monitors nitrogen dioxide at a various locations in the town centre, and there's one on Downing Street. Unfortunately, this data must be bias corrected before being used, And we can't compare the raw data from last year with the data we have from this year. And this correction is, I'm sorry, quite complex to do, is only happening once a year. And so we only really be able to do that comparison in, from January 2026 onward, I believe. But the only data we have at the moment is from South Street. Doesn't suggest any impact, but that doesn't mean that at lower level on Downing Street, that it's not, we just do not have the data at the moment in time.
Is that the blue is 23, is the orange 24? Green
Yes.
25?
Yeah.
But
And so it was two indicators, so different outside and multiplies that. So the last bit we have again is vacancy, which is from the report published by Webber Borough Council twice a year, and that's very much a placeholder. So the data is kind of like published each February and September. So obviously February 2025, we just started, it will be really relevant. But by the next board, we have we should have September 2025. So we'll be able to start seeing whether the laws are having an impact or not. What we have at the moment is that by the mandatory, so some shops are closed and stuff in the world, so we know that others are moving in or have just opened. So again, it's one we will be updating that table for the next forward and we'll get it 30 more late.
yeah. Oh, yeah, there's anything going, but does that, so it's February 25 data in the town centre include private?
Yes.
Does not.
Yeah.
That was my saying, great, because I thought that 25 may do, but the others didn't.
Yeah.
So the better check this week.
Okay.
Of this question, I'm sorry, it doesn't.
You feel like that in the town, that it's increasingly, the increasing vacancies?
Not, no, it doesn't. I mean, there are properties which are, the problem with the vacancy rates is some of them are in transition. So they may be sort of being made ready for occupation. It hasn't felt that that is the case. I think we need to do a bit more work on that.
I think we need to be very careful when we look at the next set of data to do with and without profiles, but I think there's also a number of resident, commercial properties that are becoming commercial. We move right next door to one of them, that we've got a new restaurant obviously that's opened up, that wouldn't have been in the numbers before. So I do think that we need to think about how that's presented and how we analyse that, because there are other factors that play in all of this as well. I did also have one more question on that before we moved on to the wider network stuff. Can I just go back in time a bit? Just if you go back to the map bit,
Sorry, which one?
the phasing map. I realised, I'm sorry, I was going to try and get in earlier and I looking into it. Obviously, closing Downing Street is very impactful. Obviously, the next big impact is going to be closing both Victoria Road and also more specifically, more worryingly, is closing the borough. I mean, that's obviously going to be very impactful. We talked before about trying to phase that closure of the borough in particular during the summer holidays. Obviously, at the moment, I think, although it's really, really tiny on that map, I think at the moment it shows number 11, which is the most impactful bit of the borough, autumn, winter. So I'm just wondering what we could do to maybe switch around Castle Street and the borough, because I think it is very important that as much of the borough closure as possible is done during the school summer holidays, because that is going to be by far and away the most impactful closure in the town. And that's not undermining how impactful closing Downing Street is.
Yes, I don't know whether it was with you or my head, I was discussing this morning, and as well I mentioned at the end of my presentation, which is everything that's 2026 onward, we'll be looking at more closely. And as you know, which is space, moving things around, trying to compress it. compressing and mitigate impact. So the first thing is because there's basically no traffic management for what's left of phase T. And from January onward, I expect quite a few of those phases to come sooner, to be brought forward. And we very much already had a conversation with Ringway about scheduling the borough of Warley Junction during the summer. The conversation's been had, but it's an iterative process, and the focus has been on the street. Yes, at the moment.
Yeah, I think we're going to just focus on the current programme. We'll be that over the next.
Right, okay, so, by the end of the big into its roles, we'll just sign them.
Thank you. I think before I go into any detail for Farnham, I just want to reiterate an overview, simple knowing too well that across all of Surrey, there's huge pressure on network occupation and road space. There's more works than we have network capacity. So I'm sure it feels that Farnham are getting on their fair share of those works, but please be assured it's a county-wide piece. We're not picking on Farnham. And the other thing I wanted to reiterate was how closely our network management team I'm working with Borley and they and their colleagues in the project team, recognising the rationalisation and the refinement of the programme. So they meet regularly, my team are very clear on what's changing date-wise. And then all the associated conversations we're having with the other works from most of the stakeholders are reflected accordingly, and those stakeholders understand sensitivities and difficulties in delivering farming projects. And I've got to say, are generally being very cooperative in changing their plans and their dates. So that has been working well, and I anticipate it will continue to work well. But unfortunately, I can't tell everyone to go away for a couple of years, so we do have to find ways to accommodate these works. Saying that's a joke, we have generally told works promoters to go away for a couple of years. It isn't something that can't be deferred. So on an earlier iteration of this slide, I sort of shot the room slightly by highlighting that some gas networks was to come in and a lot of gas mains replacement. That's a very long-term scheduled programme of works, and they do have flexibility. They can move things around by years rather than weeks and months. So if you looked at their programme and determined where we might want to get them in beneficially to that work, where that was not hasn't been a benefit, we had time to go away and come back in a couple of years. We've also successfully coordinated BT Overreach in their fibre build, and they've actually come in and done work within the footprint of the project team, clearing ducts, blockages, and laying new sections of pipe to prevent them having to come back in afterwards. That wasn't their scheduled time frame, and in discussion with us, they brought forward all that work in recognition of what's happening in Farnham. Otherwise, that would likely to happen in about 9 months. And the lovely new footpaths that have been laid, we've been worrying about oil spills on. We've been worrying about them being dug up and blocked PT ducts. So it's one of these things that doesn't get very well advertised, and you don't really see it because nothing's happened, but prevented problems and managed to get some collaboration. It's also worth highlighting as well that we remain in close contact with Hampshire colleagues. We obviously already had cross-border arrangements, coordination of activities, but again, given the sensitivities around Farnham, we've also enhanced coordination across the boundary there. We have much more regular check-ins, and they're in contact with us on things that they're obviously, their boundaries not that far away in traffic management terms from the town centre. And equally, things like this weekend's Chancellor Solana and having Hills in Hampshire. You'll appreciate the extra traffic that comes through on the bypass down 31. So again, we're operating the works moratorium as best we can along that corridor, as I have shared, to minimise the disruption of that large volume of extra traffic. So all preamble aside, these are the works that we are aware of in the surrounding area that we feel needs to be carefully coordinated around the town centre delivery. I'll go to the next slide, please. Right, thank you. Apologies for the font size here, it's probably easy to read the slides, but this is just an update on various locations and what's been completed and what hasn't. So the first one there is the Farnham site on West Street. You can see that some of the elements are completed, others are either still in discussion or there are outline dates and agreements on traffic management. And again, just to reassure, all this is under constant review depending what's happening with the project. So if we agree a change to the project, the town centre project delivery, these dates will change accordingly if necessary.
Matt, can I just ask you a very quick question on the subject of the Carl Holmes works on West Street? Does Surrey Highways monitor the quality of the resurfacing of the work? Because it's not perfect. You drive down West Street, you know, in France, where you come from already, they know how to do it beautifully. You know, we have those works for so many weeks, disrupting us, and then when they open it up, it's not a perfect surface. Why? And can Surrey critique it and say to the contractor, that's not good enough? We want a good surface.
Yeah, we'd be pleased to know the short answer to that question is yes. And I'll obviously confer with Ori now and how they do things in France. But yes, the short answer is yes, there's a national specification that has to be adhered to. And if they haven't met that specification correctly, their works can be considered defective and they're obliged to come back and redo them at their own cost.
I like to find that.
The caveat being that, of course, if they have to come in and redo them, then there's more traffic management impact. So we do have to be consider that. But yes, there is a period of time when they're allowed to put in an interim material. So I haven't written down there myself. It might be that what you're describing is an interim material. I don't know.
Yeah.
That is admitted. Once they've completed their permanent reinstatement, they have a 2-year guaranteed period whereby we can spend that if failed that period, they come back and remedy that at their own expense.
A bit like the West Street paving, sorry, the East Street paving that West Nicholson did. I hope you won't adopt that because that's defective.
Okay, well,
Anyway, that's another another issue.
So as I go through these, you'll see a common theme. A lot of the more intrusive traffic management of these other schemes is understandably clustered around school holiday periods. And Catherine's early sentiment. It will appear as one happening at once, but the balance is a lot's happening at once when there's much lower traffic volumes, and that's a general approach across the county. If you drive around in the next few weeks, you will see a lot more roadworks. I make no apologies for it. It's because that's the best time to do them when there's much less traffic on the network.
It's about on that specific issue, obviously on the previous map, one of the very intrusive closures is not on the previous map. Surrey Highways have just issued permit to close St George's Road, which is one of the alternative routes Downing Street. So that's the road where you can see Bagshot Lee and it sort of comes down south from Bagshot Lee, actually where it's written. That road has just been granted a closure licence between 8 AM on the 11th of August and 5 PM on the 22nd of August. So whilst I absolutely welcome it being done during the school holidays, I absolutely do not welcome it being done while Downing Street is closed. Because that is one of the alternative routes that people will use. And having both those routes closed at the same time in terms of north-south routes is really going to cause a problem. And I would urgently request that you look to see if that work can be brought forward and done before the Downing Street closure. Because whilst I understand school holidays is a good thing, closing those two sets of parallel north-south routes when we are so limited on north-south routes is going to be a problem.
Notice I can't answer all the details.
Last time.
But let me take that away. I'll certainly look at that and make sure we don't have done anything stupid there. Sorry, so just to finish off, so there's the Hale Road development there as well. As you can see, phases have been completed, phases have been flagged around town centre activities. Still one item to include there. Next one. Just some further detail here again. These are not completed, but again you can see a lot of these date ranges are utilising that quite a period. And then finally, to finish on a positive, final slide, please. Here's something completed. So that's the again, well, it's completely completed, not partially completed, and not needed. So as I say, in summary, we're completely appreciative of all the pressures that the town centre project is bringing. We're doing our damnedest to all play activities as best we can. We still obviously have to deal with things like immediate activities that land on that. But the cooperation of utility companies that generally we engaged with early, the information that comes from the project team is very good quality, which makes it easy to share with people and easy for them to understand and interpret, which does help. So, my logical budget team continue to work closely with the project team. We'll do our damnedest to mitigate the impacts of the surrounding works, and we will maintain that principle that it doesn't have to be done. It's not customer driven. It's not urgent. It's not safety relevant. We will politely ask to come back in a couple of years' time.
Just just a very small question for me. Tony sent a question around, I was on the circulation list the other day. And has there been an answer to?
Yes, actually didn't answer. It's about the right left turn into, we discussed this morning.
Well, it's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, well, who's starts? Okay, is there anything else for Matt?
Yeah. But just about that. The issue of lane rentals, you know, and penalties for overrunning, has that been fully implemented now? And is that assisting?
Yes, it's been fully implemented since April 2021. There was a transition period for any projects that struggled with that start date, but that's long since passed. So any of the works now being undertaken are subject to lane rental charges. For those that are not aware, that's a daily charge. That's not just when works overrun, it's as they progress. It's a daily charge, which incentivises all the works promoters to avoid impact on traffic flows at peak times. So it incentivises both their design of what they do and how they do it, and the speed in which they deliver it. And it can be quite punitive. So, for example, on a lane rental street, close that road at peak times, say 8 PM Monday to Friday, and you're subject to a daily charge of £2,500. So that's the charge. It's not a full closure, but still impacts is £1,500 a day, but still quite punitive. So yes, that is delivering benefits. It doesn't stop everything happening. So works still need to take place, but we are seeing works far better planned. There is a discount to those charges. We collaborate with others, and so we are also seeing people trying to explore where they can collaborate.
And you're generating income for Surrey through that, which is useful.
Well, we generate income, it's not for Surrey, so the legislation is very specific. The money is received and held by Surrey. We remove from that figure the operating costs of the scheme, staff costs, system costs, etc. And then that balance is a lane rental surplus that is ring fenced that can be bid for by anybody. But any project which mitigates the negative impact of street works and road works, that's the tagline for what's in scope of that fund. Anyone can bid to it. There is a governance board, consider those bids and then reallocate those monies. And that money is rolled forward. It doesn't have to be accounted for at financial year end. So if anyone has any bids, any shape or size of the board that they think fit under the standard of mitigating the impact of road works.
The application last meeting.
Yeah, then we can consider those.
Yes.
Hello, Matt. Thank you.
Everyone knows what's on money,
Well, what's good in actual, I was going to make the point that I think, I don't know what percent, 10 or 11% of Surrey roads are subject to lane rental, something like that, but.
It's currently 7.5%. It's the busiest, most congested part of the network. The FT have recently revised their guidance on our authorities, and they've raised the ceiling, suggested ceiling, which was previously 5%. We actually managed to make a special case for Surrey to argue to go above that. The DFT have reissued their guidance and now suggest that scheme we cover up to 10% of authorities' road network. So officers are currently considering an expansion of that network, but it's something we have to reapply to the DFT to do. We can't just elect to do it ourselves.
At the moment, we've got mental health laws putting amendments to I think it's the planning infrastructure bill going through the laws at the moment to do two things. One is to allow all councils
by default to have the right to introduce a lane rental scheme. At the moment, you have to apply and to be approved by the Secretary of State, but also to have unlimited ability to extend the scheme. So we'll see whether the event gets anywhere. But I think the kind of two things that we're quite keen on. I'm quite keen on is being able to use that lane rental scheme wherever we want to use it across the county, because it does have a positive impact to encouraging utility companies in particular to get on with the works. Then the other bit that we're trying to get pushed through is the ability to prevent people or fine people, if you like, for parking on pavements at the same house as the mayor of London, because that's
thanks for that clarification. So the DfT have actually already consulted on consideration as to who could approve future land schemes, such as devolved authorities, etc. And I should clarify at the start, Farnham Town Centre in its entirety is part of our lane rental network. So all the streets we're talking about can't lane rental network.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember you referring to this at the last board meeting, actually, when you were on Zoom. And so do utilities also pay as well as developers who need to?
Very much so.
So they are. Okay, that's interesting. Then I happen to know how much is the surplus in the fund at the moment, do you? Is that what the shrimp really? And the other thing I just wanted to ask, presumably the scheme is encouragement to utilities and developers who need to do works on the highway to get on with it, to expedite it. So that's good. It's a good idea, good scheme. And you mentioned that anybody could apply for money if it's probably certain criteria for what you want to use that money for. Is there some link that you could give where we could look up that information and see how we can go about it? Because in addition to the FIP, there are certain other infrastructure requirements in the town that could do with a bit of dosh. And it might be that could work for that, otherwise we're going to have to hit the Waverley CIL pot. But anyway, it'd be interesting to see. Thank you.
The amount of money that's in the pot, so to speak, is public knowledge. We can publish records of it, obviously. Currently, there's a couple of £1 million to be bid for, which is the good news. We've been very successful in giving out a lot of money to some very interesting bids. Some of the other land rental authorities are sitting on a much larger stockpile of their money. Our government structure has been very successful compared to some of our peers, I'm pleased to say. But I must urge caution. The tagline for this is the bids must be something that mitigates the negative impact of street works and road works, not the negative impact of congestion per se. So very much targeted at equipment, systems, innovation, but around roadworks activities, not we need an extra lane here or we need an extra sign there. It must be related to mitigating the impact of works that take place. So just, but I'm happy to share it. I think you shared it before. I'm happy to share it.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I mean, another point which to remember is, of course, the council when we're doing our own highways work is also subject to paying rental. So it's a cost to us, which is why we, before any expansion of the scheme, probably like the work done.
Thanks for universally popular utility companies and something to that.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Sophie. This is good news.
So, as you know, we submitted a business case to government, strategic outline business case. 2021 now, took a while to get through the system. And therefore now we need to have the most affordable, beneficial scheme for Farnham. So at the moment, we're reviewing the DFT to give direction of design and to help us understand the benefits of delivering the scheme will be. And the key steps required to go to a business case, which is where funding scheme starts. So at the moment, we're doing modelling, because there's been a lot of government changes with regards to how modelling is actually carried out now. And we're doing some do minimum, which is no scheme, and with scheme scenarios. So there's more scenarios than we originally presented, just because travel's come in a bit more, and you know, other comments which we've kind of received. And so these are now updated, and we're actually reviewing kind of the high level ECR benefit cost ratio of the scheme, which is essentially how it stacks up. Is it good value for money for Surrey? And we have discussions with the DFT about it. Then the outcome of this we'll report back on. So you know, we'll make sure it's all updated. But still, the current submission of the outcome of this case is August 2026.
But it's still in the program of all of this, which is going to go back up review of those. So fingers crossed, get that people. Good. Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
This is obviously evolved over time because of the changing government approaches to things. And we haven't had a sort of catch-up meeting for quite some time about where it's at. It might be useful if we could have a catch-up programmed on this.
As Tim referred to, there has been a recent view of all the different schemes which are in and out, and ours is on the reserve list, but obviously we've still got to demonstrate that money, but more than happy to have a catch-up once we know the results. Modelling, because they're the ones which we need now to.
What sort of timescale that be?
Just thinking about whether we DFT, it could probably be in the autumn now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for that. Good. Okay, item 7 then. And risk foundation.
So I think we've been through most programme, we're on track. It's just a good visual of how many miles have been completed. And obviously, the town centre is on track, if not ahead of programme. And then we're coming by what else is on, I can't see us through. Yeah, I think we discussed all the different goals, so it's in the.
Direction is still there. Since so all this is something. The last one probably important.
Yeah, she brings on.
No, is the calculation you do. And the North and South Arm studies. So it's only, yeah, let's see where this got the red bit.
Yeah. That's just the feasibility design, so there's multiple routes and multiple sort of strands to that, so we want to now Catherine I'm sure is working with Neil. Do you want me to quickly say about the HGPs, does that help? So since February, 658 HGR notices have been issued by the ANPR camera vehicle. We have had an assessment of a single fixed camera on Odeon Road, just northwest of the junction with Folly Hill, near the BP garage. It's been undertaken and the installation has, the poles are in, and I think the camera heads are in, I'm told.
Yeah, so the expectation of being in August. Yeah. So the last server installed by have installed the ATV warning signs on the 80-87. But that is on the list. Yeah. So hopefully, I mean, I don't know, £658 to charge notice, if that's a reasonable number, but well, until we've got the camera, and I think that's
Shows the level of the problem.
Yeah, it does.
So just on that same issue, we are unfortunately still getting, I know that abnormal loads is not dealt with by Surrey, it's dealt with by police, I'm well aware of that. But we are still getting abnormal loads directed down the Underhill Road. As I am finding out about them, I am now addressing them with people executing the work, so All Hallows Stand past, it was a big problem last year where there were huge vehicles sent down that road, because COVID was appropriate, caused a lot of problems. They are having similar modular buildings being delivered this year, and I've worked directly with the school, and the school are dealing with it directly with the operator. It's obviously not feasible for me to do that with everything. I can't get a response from the police to get them to confirm that they are not going to use that road for abnormal loads going forwards. They should be diverting along the M3 and the A331. That is why the A331 was installed in the first place. So, you know, we do need to still get that addressed with the police. It's not criticism of the street works team, because it's not their responsibility. But I have tried to get a response from the police and miserably failed. Obviously, once the cameras are in place, that will help with enforcement generally, both on Castle Street and on the Underhill Road. But that will not deal with the diversion issue. I recognise that you have spoken to National Highways about the need to own 3 closures to put additional signage up. That does seem to have helped a little bit. It hasn't completely resolved the problem. And maybe in terms of that trial system you were talking about, M3 closures would be a good one to use it for, because they should be coming along the designated route rather than the HGVs hurtling through Upper Hill, which is, it's not safe. It has to stop.
There's a couple of things to unpick there. So the abnormal loads, leave open.
Abnormal loads.
Sorry. Leave open. You're right. It's not a Surrey function. It's not a Surrey function, but we are involved in discussions around it. So I have some inquiries to find out why abnormal loads are being put down there. Which prioritize completely absent. And Jimmy and Bottle, this new product, it's been sat in redirections. I think you need to cautiously use it on roads such as ones we talked about earlier. I don't think using on an A road is a very suitable option. And as I said, one of the things we're very, very cautious about is you prevent people being routed down one road where they route you down instead. So it's something we're exploring the use of, but as I say, I don't think its use on A road is particularly appropriate. I think it's more of those roads, exactly like the ones we were talking about before. But leave the abnormal roads with me. I'm happy to take an action and see if I can influence that anyway. Andy.
Okay, I asked a question about the question bridge. My daughter and grandchildren have moved over like the old grade school. So I use this bridge much more often now, was around it much more often. So it's so much more visible to me now, and so much better. Feel a lot safer there. Do the figures substantiate that? Are we keeping figures to show that things are better? It just looks so much better now.
Yeah, thanks for the comment, Andy. It's the only bridge, the only low bridge you can see from space now. If it's so bright yellow, it does remind me of the old Round of Fools and Horses episode. Yeah, my colleague Duncan Knox would be better placed to answer that, because to the road safety manager, because they do keep records of bridge strikes. I think anecdotally, the sentiment is exactly as you just expressed, Andy. There's a lot of vegetative cutback, and the bridge is now so bright, and having a large low bridge written remarkably does seem to have helped. So it took a lot of negotiation there, because obviously the bridge is their asset, and they had to do painting. There's a lot of lobbying at both politically and the officer level. So I agree with you. I think anecdotally it's been a roaring success. We have to check in with other colleagues to know if we've got data that would substantiate that.
We're gonna ask a question off the back of that. I'm gonna do that. Maybe yeah, I followed an HGV coming towards Farnham, not so long ago, and he or she turned the vehicle into Short Heath Road, which leads to the Ridgeway eventually, quite congested in the area. The only other alternative route is to turn past Waverley School and over that bridge. So I just wonder how that's working and whether sat navs are directing the drivers to do that, you know, to take alternatives before they get to the bridge, which would be really good. Thank you.
So the first thing to say is there is a fully signed underlying vehicle diversion route. Long before that point, so anyone who's gone beyond there is then rerouting is doing so on against what would safely give the suitable route. I think one of the problems we had is that a lot of the HGV drivers don't necessarily use specialist sat nav routing, which would redirect them away from low bridges. They just use a little sat nav. Whether their sat nav redirects them away, make that turn, or whether they just saw the signs and they sort of intimated it and then sort of rerouted off the cuff. We don't know, but the appropriate signage is there. If drivers are reluctant to ignore it, that is the problem that we're trying to mitigate with the subsequent work of the bridge. Say, yes, you don't if you do, you don't if you don't. If they're getting to that point and turning away, at least they're not hitting the bridge. We do appreciate that and create other problems where they not left to travel. But bluntly, they shouldn't be. They should follow the signage, which is very clear and takes them on perfectly suitable.
I'll find out the bridge strike numbers, but it actually normally is reported to Network Rail rather than ourselves, so I have to look at it. So
Just to remind, that cost me my annual allowance to have the bit of the Brooklands Road for the chairman of the Network Rail to drive his and the vintage buses over it.
Money was spent.
Right, okay. Does anybody have any other business? If not, can I thank everybody for particularly residents for their sort of patience and tolerance as we work through go through these works. And I hope we all knew that the town centre works were going to be painful. There have been a couple of hiccups that were perhaps avoidable, and I think now have been avoided. Around lights and so on. I mean, certainly looking around the town today, the work that has been undertaken looks very good. Kind of start to see how the feel of the town centre will change. Can I thank the officers for responding to this board's request to in terms of the phasing of the work, accelerating the work, having 6 standards on, is going to really make a huge difference. And I think, so that on 1 standard which is done, that will give big benefits and get those sites sorted out. So I think everybody else can touch wood, but I think we're all feeling positive as we can. Thank you very much for that. Is there anything else anybody wants to say? Otherwise, if not, I don't know, we have a date for it, it can be sometime into the autumn. Yeah.
I think we're trying to do so it's carrying on to another phase.
Yeah.
It's probably just worth reiterating the point that you just made. I mean, there was some discussion at the town council recently, and I suppose the best way of putting it is it's gone better than people feared. But obviously concerned about the next phase in particular, which is obviously going to be quite difficult, so if we can maintain that standard, then hopefully everyone will appreciate it continuing that way. I suppose the businesses who are feeling the bottom line in the shops have expressed perhaps more concern than others, and as long as we're keeping that communication link going forward, so they understand the impacts and the benefits that you say with the extra gangs and things, and the pressure that councillors are put on and trying to to get the extra work in to speed it up. Once that's understood, I think people are much more sympathetic.
Okay. That reminded me of a little somewhere this morning. I thought it was really, really important actually the ringway operative who controls all the lights to make sure that the traffic flows within them. You know, he's overly excited in doing the job, saying to the but you know, gave us a couple of examples where a couple of residents, one had fallen over, not to help somebody collapsed, and there was possibly wife to do the initial diagnosis of diabetes. I mean, all sorts of unbelievable things going on whilst he's sitting there doing his job. But it just, you just always get that feeling with Farnham that it's a kind of a family. You know, it's everything is sort of, you know, really, really loves the people. And so I thought that was just really impressive actually, that he's not just sitting there doing his day job, he's out there, you can see actually helping, supporting. So long may that continue to. Okay, thank you all very much. I think we'll have a lovely summer holiday. Great. And then we'll catch up. And yours.
Yeah.